let's start with some notable trades over the past week. Is the trade market going to continue to stay hotter than the free agent market for now?
I think it will. I think it's going to stay like this until the end of December, maybe 1st of January. And until this is absolutely exhausted, the trade market, then they'll turn to the free agent market and say, you know what, let's go that route instead. We'll start spending money when we have to. Right now, you don't have to. And yeah, some big contracts have been moved that have been surprising.
What were your specific thoughts on the Sonny Gray acquisition for Boston, and then also the Semien for Nimmo deal earlier this week, since we haven't had you on since then?
Well, I thought, kudos to Cardinals to pay $20 million down to get prospects back. So if they just wanted to have a salary dump, they would have said, hey, Boston, you got it. We don't care who, we're coming back. Now they got, two legitimate guys, with Clark, should be a starter, if nothing else, a back-end reliever. And, should fit in well as a, maybe a fourth or fifth type starter. So to do that, they had to pay $20 million. So kudos to the Cardinals ownership for at least doing that. And Gray wanted out. Gray also, I think Eric alluded to this the other day, that he wanted to prove he can pitch in a big market. I think even when he left Minnesota, he was open to going somewhere like, hey, I know I can do this. In the big trade with the, with Nimmo and Semien, I'm surprised that Nimmo would waive it. I mean, he just had his house redone in Port St. Lucie, longtime Met. That's where his legacy is. Semien did not have the two New York teams on his no trade clause, but it seems like both guys were kind of eager to get out. I'd be curious come spring training when those guys start seeing down and more relaxed, what the true story was as far as, why were they kind of eager to go ahead and leave where they are right now.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on the no trade. I mean, I was never in a position to not have a no trade, but I can imagine as a player, you pick up the phone, David Stern calls, and they go, hey, Brandon Nimmo, we're thinking about trading you, right? As a player, you have a, you feel a certain way about an organization when they tell you they're going to trade you. At some point it's, they want to trade me, but they can't trade me because I have the ultimate say. So maybe that played a factor in for a guy like Brandon Nimmo. It's like, hey, we want to trade you, but you have to approve it. But my question to you is, knowing Chaim Bloom's connection with the Red Sox previously to the Cardinals, have you got any word that Sonny was really shopped around, or were the Red Sox kind of the team that he knew the farm system really well? He kind of identified as a place that maybe he felt Sonny would feel comfortable going, and he felt comfortable in the return that he knew he was going to get from the Red Sox.
No, I think he was definitely shopped around. Remember a year ago, they wanted to trade him. Certainly at the All-Star break, trade deadline, they wanted to move him, and Sonny Gray said no. Now, talk to me in a few months. I'll go ahead and think about it. And I think when they presented it to him, he got excited about it. But I think he was shopped around. I think Sonny Gray would have went to a number of places. But yeah, Chaim Bloom, knowing that farm system very well, still got a lot of friends in Boston, says, you know what, let's identify these two guys, and then convince his own ownership, like, hey, we're paying $20 million to a guy who's not here anymore, but we get something back. So I think this can be a prelude to, trading Nolan Arenado. A year ago, Arenado turned down Houston, which was a mistake, turned down the Angels. And now I think he's saying, hey, shop me everywhere, and I'll probably give my go-ahead. And they're probably going to eat most of that contract just to get some type of return back.
Do you think too much is made, Bob, about the Nimmo departure and David Stearns having, as one writer described it, a cold heart towards the nostalgic Mets? Like, is too much being made about that? Because David Stearns' job is to make the best team based on the start of next year and not, like, appease fans. Everybody will forget about trades when they make the playoffs, and they didn't this past year.
I agree too much is made of it. I mean, he already showed his hand a year ago. Hey, if Alonso wanted to come back at their dollar, fine. If not, so be it. They were ready to walk away from him last year. They're ready to walk away from him this year, too. It's like they're saying, oh, it'd be nice to have him back. They're saying the right things. But, if he gets a good offer out there, let's see if they want to match or not. So I don't think there's any guarantee whatsoever that Pete Alonso is back. I could see him walking away. I think when Díaz gets a 5-year contract, they're going to walk away from that too. They love what he did. They love that he pitched so much down the stretch, 2 innings at a time. But they've kind of set a price limit. Like, okay, you don't come back for that. That's fine. A little bit like the Dodgers, did with Corey Seager. They weren't going to match that what Texas is offering.
Hey, do you believe on the topic of the Mets? Do you believe if Pete Alonso does walk and go somewhere else, do they have an internal candidate that could play first base? And if it's not an internal candidate, where do you see them going? Considering they want this run prevention, and Pete doesn't really kind of fit that mold.
No, they could certainly shift Mark Vientos over to first base if they want. There's some defensive guys out there. I mean, do they just go on the cheap and get a Paul Goldschmidt? Bring him over. Do they go on the cheap and get a Reese Hoskins? Who's a free agent and after spending 2 years in Milwaukee. So I would be surprised at all to say, you know what, we can mix and match at first base, but we're not going to put $30 to $40 million in a first baseman. Did that last year and they didn't make the playoffs.
All right, let's look at the Cards' return in this trade for Sonny Gray. Is it indicative of how close Chaim Bloom thinks the Cardinals really are, based on the fact that he didn't go and get, 3 low-level prospects that have high ceilings? He got 2 guys, one who already has big league time, and then Braden Clark, who just burst on the scene with 100 miles an hour from the left side, seems to be close to the big leagues too.
I think just more of a sure thing. I mean, he likes what Fit did as far as can be a 4th, 5th starter. Kind of jury's out a little bit on Clark. Had an unbelievable first half, kind of fell apart the second half. So even in Boston, the talent evaluators are saying, well, is he really a starter or is he a reliever? At worst, they say he's going to be a strong reliever. They're real, the ceiling is high, but they're reluctant to say, oh, this guy's going to be an ace or number 2 starter. I just think for Chaim Bloom, this is more of a sure thing. And it's going to appease the fans too, instead of getting 3 young guys you're kind of throwing craps on and see if it works out or not.
What kind of return is Arenado looking at now? We knew what the return could kind of look like with Houston. Houston was willing to take a little bit more of the money, and Arenado said no, because now we're 1 year later, but he's 1 year cheaper too. So is the return just a complete dump, or can the Cardinals get anything for him without having to eat $20 million like they did for Sonny Gray?
They don't want it to be a complete dump. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same blueprint here and say, hey, we'll eat 3/4 of his contract. I think they're going to have to eat at least $20, $25, $30 million of Nolan Arenado contract to move him. The more money they eat, the better prospect they have. So I'd be shocked if he's there on in spring training. They'll find people that want him, particularly if they say you can have this guy and all it's going to cost you is $5 or $10 million a year for the next 2 years.
Hey, for all the parents out there with teens, it's more hectic now than ever.
Cash App's going to help, not hurt.
With the Cash App card, available to teens 13 to 17 with sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian, every transaction triggers a real-time notification for you to see, empowering your teen to practice independence while giving you peace of mind by keeping track of their spending. You can also manage everything directly from your own Cash App account without having to switch between the two. With the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances receive 24/7 fraud monitoring, and if something ever feels off, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Direct deposit and promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Any thoughts on the Kyle Tucker market right now in terms of both pace and potential suitors? Like, have you heard anything the last couple of weeks that leads you to believe that there are some front runners who are seriously interested? And from a timeline perspective, do you think that this is someone who could potentially sign around the winter meetings?
I think he could sign winter meetings. I think with Bellinger, if Bellinger's smart, he's probably going to say, "Hey, I want Tucker to sign first, then I'll piggyback off him. I'm not going to get the Tucker money, but I don't have to get that much less." I think the same couple teams were the Blue Jays, the Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers. There's only I think 3 or 4 teams are interested. I don't think there's any chance in the world he goes back to Houston. They're not going to spend that kind of money. And I think teams like him, but they don't absolutely love him. This is 2 straight years now. He's had poor second halves with the injuries. The injuries seem like they take a long time. Kind of slow recoveries here. And he's also been a guy that, he's not the, aircraft carrier. He's more, a supporting player, a very good, if not a great supporting player, but not the guy that, is going to sell a lot of tickets at the box office, not going to, lead you guys. He's just more of a quiet demeanor. He lives in Tampa, so I think the team that playing in Florida, that's why I think the Yankees and Blue Jays would have, an advantage since Blue Jays are there in Dundee, and of course the Yankees are in Tampa.
Hey, Bob, who do you think is kind of the player, the domino that everything, once he goes, everything kind of falls in place? Is it some of these Japanese players that are being posted? Is it Edwin Díaz in the back end of the bullpen? Or is everyone kind of waiting to put their best offer for a Tarek Skubal? Is it Kyle Tucker? Who do you think is kind of that domino that's going to kind of push this free agency thing moving forward?
I think it's been more the pitching market. I think a guy like Framber Valdez could set the market there, if not Imaya from Japan. I don't think Michael King's going to set the market or Dylan Cease, but I think Valdez could. And I thought it was smart on the agent's part to lobby him, bring him around the lobby of the GM meetings and have him meet individually, saying what exactly happened that night. Is this ever going to happen again when you're crossing up the catcher and just how bad it looked? So I thought it was smart just for those teams to know his real personality. And I think he can set the pitching market.
Bob, KP mentioned some of the Japanese talent. Do you think that teams will, I don't want to say overpay, but be very aggressive to try and land one of who I think are 3 potential stars that could come over from Japan to the US? Sakamoto seems more of a high floor guy, Murakami more of a high ceiling guy on the position player side, and then Amai, who seems like he's got a little bit of both. So you have 3 players who are not going to all sign with the Dodgers. So the reason I ask this is an opportunity for teams to kind of reestablish themselves in Japan and try and take a little bit of a percentage of share away from the Dodgers, who have such a foothold right now in Japan.
Yeah, I think Imai is the guy that everybody wants. And I think what happened with Yamamoto, especially what he did last year, what he did in the postseason. I think people have stars in their eyes now, like, oh man, we're not saying Yamamoto, but he can be close. So I think his value is going to, rise. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's the #1 paid pitcher out there. Murakami, I think people aren't sure what to get. Hey, a lot of power, but now he's going to see fastballs he hadn't seen before. Strikes out an awful lot in Japan. So how much is he going to strike out over here? Okamoto, I think, is more of a sure thing. It's going to cost a lot less. So Murakami would be interesting. If Dodgers weren't bringing back, Max Muncy, I would say it makes sense. But he would have to wait at least a year for Muncy's contract to run out, or even, for Freddie Freeman's to run out in a couple of years. So I just don't see a fit there. But I can certainly see him going to a place like a San Diego Padres or certainly back east.
Bob, from a money perspective, where are you thinking for Amai right now? I think initially when I was reading about him maybe 3-4 months ago, I saw a lot of like 100 could get to 150, maybe high 100s. Personally, for me now, I think he's going to top 200 and maybe even get to the mid 2s if you just try and do a comp here, even if he's a lesser version of Yamamoto. Yamamoto was 25. Amai is 27. So there's a 2-year difference. Yamamoto ended up with $325 million, and there was a little bit more of an uncertainty factor, at that time period. Like, can a guy who's the dominant man there be the dominant man here? The answer is yes. So if there's another #1 starting pitcher and he's 27 years old, what do you think that's going to add up to?
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I think it could get over 200 million. I remember when Yamamoto came out, nobody was predicting 325 million. They were talking the same thing, 150, 175. No one going to cross the $300 barrier, $3 million barrier. And he had 4 or 5 teams that were right there. I'm not sure this guy's going to have 4 or 5 teams, but I think everybody's curious. And I think, like I said, what Yamamoto did, I think everybody says, well, if he did it, then I can do it. So I think, when he gets his final paycheck, he should give a percentage of it to Yamamoto, because I think Yamamoto's success really helped out.
I think Yamamoto's fine. I don't think he doesn't need a tip, but I get it. I like that. And then everybody needs to give money, all position players, to Ichiro and Matsui. So yeah, somebody's got to be the trailblazer. I have a question for you. Lance Lynn brought it up on Cardinals territory the other day. How does this offseason look if there was a trade deadline in the offseason? Who does that benefit the most? Does that benefit free agents who have worked 6 years to get there? Or does that benefit teams who are holding these trade pieces that teams would want, or are thinking that they want, but they have a deadline, so we got to get to that before the winter meetings or by the end of the winter meetings?
I think it would help free agents. I really do. Because right now, these guys are taking spots up. Like Sonny Gray just took a nice starting pitcher slot up. So yeah, have a deadline for that. I think it'd make it a lot more fun. It's like after the COVID season, whenever you had like a couple of weeks of time before spring training, that was fun. That was almost like NBA, NFL style, and we hadn't seen that. So, but I think it would help free agents as far as clear the marketplace. Now they have to focus on us, and because right now there's so many moves that are made in spring training. I mean, it used to be, hey, free agents wanted to sign before Christmas because then the family would know where they're at for the holidays. They get housing in Arizona or Florida for spring training, and now I think guys are so used to just waiting and signing even at the start of spring training. And we saw that with Bregman. Obviously, we saw that at that big March and February with Machado in San Diego, and of course Harper in Philadelphia. So no, I think it would help players, and I think it'd be fun too. Right now, the only really deadline you're thinking about is the Diamondbacks with Ketel Marte, only because he's a 10-5 player, 10 days in the regular season. So I think in their mind, their deadline is mid-April. If we don't trade him now, he's got 10-5, right? So we probably would never trade him.